If you ever touch her again, you won't just lose your fortune, Richard. You'll lose the hands you used to hurt her. I heard Gunner's voice through the ringing in my ears, and for the first time in 3 years I didn't feel afraid. I felt relief so strong it made my knees buckle. I was on the floor, my lip bleeding, looking up at the man who had controlled every second of my life, and he looked small. He looked terrified, all because my little girl had the courage to run out that door and find the only people who ever really gave a damn about us. They say money can't buy happiness, but I learned it can definitely buy silence. It can buy a perfect image, and it can buy the kind of fear that keeps you trapped in a mansion that feels more like a prison. But it couldn't buy off the loyalty of people who knew what real family meant. How is everyone doing today? I hope you're all safe and warm wherever you're watching from. Let me know in the comments what the weather is like in your part of the world. It's finally sunny here after a long week of rain. My name is Tess, and this is the story of how I went from being a billionaire's punching bag to a woman who finally took her life back. It's tough to talk about, but if my story can help just one person recognize the signs I missed, then it's worth reopening these old wounds. This is a heavy one, guys, and I really hope you stick with me. If you're already hooked, please do me a huge favor and hit that like button right now, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel and turn on those notifications. You are not going to want to miss how this ends. But let me start from the beginning, back before the mansions and the private jets, back when things were simple, even if they were hard. I was 24 when I started working nights at Sterling Enterprises. I was a single mom, just trying to keep a roof over my head and food on the table for my daughter, Maya. Maya was 3 then, the sweetest little thing you'd ever meet. I didn't have a college degree. I didn't have family support. My parents passed when I was young, and Maya's dad took off before she was even born. It was just us against the world. I took the janitorial job because it paid decent hourly, and I could work while Maya was asleep. My neighbor, Mrs. Gable, would watch her for a few hours until I got home. It was exhausting. I was always tired. My hands were always chapped from the harsh cleaning chemicals, and my back always ached. But every morning when I walked in and saw Maya sleeping peacefully in our tiny one-bedroom apartment, I knew it was worth it. We didn't have much, but we had people who cared. I grew up around a rougher crowd, or at least that's what people called them. The Iron Saints Motorcycle Club. To the outside world, they were scary. Big guys, loud bikes, lots of leather. To me, they were the uncles I never had. Gunner, the club president, had been best friends with my dad. When my dad died, Gunner promised to look out for me. He was the one who fixed my beat-up old Honda for free when the transmission blew. He was the one who brought Maya a giant teddy bear every Christmas, the kind that was bigger than she was. They were good people, but I always felt like I needed to do better. I wanted Maya to have more than I did. I didn't want her growing up around grease and loud engines. I wanted her to have piano lessons and pretty dresses and a college fund. I wanted to be respectable. That's what made me so vulnerable when Richard Sterling noticed me. It was late one night, maybe around 2 a.m. I was buffing the floors in the executive wing, the big corner office on the top floor. I thought everyone had gone home hours ago. I had my headphones in, humming along to some cheesy pop song, dancing a little with the buffer. I turned around, and he was just sitting there at his massive desk, watching me. I nearly jumped out of my skin. I yanked my headphones out and started apologizing, terrified I was going to get fired for slacking off. Richard Sterling was a legend in the city. Self-made billionaire, handsome, charming, always on the cover of business magazines. And there I was, wearing stained gray coveralls, no makeup, hair in a messy bun. But he didn't yell. He just smiled. He said it was the most life he'd seen in this office in years. He started talking to me. Not like I was a janitor, but like I was a person. He asked about my life, about Maya. He seemed genuinely interested. He told me he was lonely at the top, that nobody ever just talked to him without wanting something. I was naive. I was so incredibly naive. I mistook his attention for kindness. I mistook his probing questions for genuine care. Over the next few weeks, he'd accidentally be working late when I was on his floor. He started bringing me coffee. Then he asked if I wanted to sit down and eat the fancy takeout he'd ordered because he ordered too much. It felt like a fairy tale. Here was this powerful, wealthy man who wanted to spend time with me. Me, a girl who scrubbed his toilets. He told me I was smart, that I was wasting my potential pushing him up. He offered to pay for me to take some night classes. He bought Maya gifts, expensive, thoughtful gifts. When he asked me out on a real date, I couldn't believe it. I remember calling Gunnar to tell him, thinking he'd be happy for me. Gunnar was quiet for a long time. Then he just said, "Be careful, Tessie. Guys like that, they don't live in the same real world we do. They think they can own everything they touch." I got defensive. I told him he was just being prejudiced because Richard was rich. I told him Richard was different. I didn't see the jealousy then. I didn't see how Richard's jaw tightened when I mentioned the club. I didn't notice how he slowly started suggesting I shouldn't go around them anymore. He'd say things like, "You're moving up in the world now, Tess. You don't want people like that dragging you down. Think of Maya. Is that the environment you want her in?" It made sense at the time. I wanted the best for Maya, so I started pulling away from the only real family I had. I stopped answering Gunnar's calls. I stopped dropping by the clubhouse on weekends. 6 months later, Richard proposed. He rented out an entire restaurant, filled it with my favorite flowers. He got down on one knee and promised to take care of me and Maya forever. He promised she would never want for anything again. I said yes. I thought I had won the lottery. I thought I had finally secured the safe, happy future I'd always dreamed of. I didn't know I had just signed a contract with the devil. I didn't know that the man smiling up at me with that perfect diamond ring was already planning exactly how he was going to break me, piece by piece, until I was nothing but another possession in his collection. The red flags were there, painting the whole room, but I was wearing rose-colored glasses, so thick. The wedding was a blur. It wasn't really my wedding. It was a sterling event. There were hundreds of people I didn't know, a dress that cost more than my old car, and cameras everywhere. I remember smiling until my face ached. Maya, who was almost 4 by then, was the flower girl in a dress that looked like a tiny cloud. She was in awe of it all. I kept telling myself this was for her. This was the new life I'd secured for her. We moved into his estate right after the honeymoon. It wasn't a house, it was a compound. Gates, security guards, a staff that seemed to materialize out of thin air whenever you needed something and disappear just as quickly. Maya's new playroom was 3 times the size of our entire old apartment. She had a full-time nanny, a sweet girl named Clara, who was hired to help her adjust. I thought I loved him. I really did. In those first few months, Richard was the perfect husband. He was doting, affectionate, and so proud to have me on his arm. I was a Cinderella story, the beautiful janitor he'd swept off her feet. He loved telling people the story at parties. I'd just stand there and smile, feeling like a show pony. The first crack didn't come from Richard, though. It came from his mother, Beatrice Sterling. Beatrice was exactly what you'd expect from old money. Tall, thin, and with a stare that could freeze hot coffee. She made no secret of her disapproval. She'd come for lunch and run her white-gloved finger along a windowsill, raising an eyebrow at the housekeeper. But her real poison was saved for me. "That's a lovely color on you, Teresa," she'd say, looking at a simple blue dress I bought myself. "It's so vibrant, almost like a uniform." She never called me Tess. Always Teresa. I complained to Richard one night, close to tears after she'd made a comment about Maya's unfortunate lack of lineage. Richard was perfect. He wrapped his arms around me, kissed my forehead, and told me not to worry about a thing. The next day, he drove us to his mother's house. He walked me into her formal living room, stood in front of her, and said, "Mother, Tess is my wife. Maya is my daughter. They are Sterlings. If you ever, and I mean ever, make either of them feel anything less than welcome in this family, you will not see me again. Am I clear?" Beatrice turned pale. She nodded, her lips a thin white line. I almost cried with gratitude. I felt so protected, so defended. He was my white knight. I trusted him completely. I saw him as my shield against this cold, judgmental world I'd married into. It was only later I realized he wasn't shielding me. He was just establishing ownership. The isolation started so slowly, I didn't even notice. It all sounded perfectly reasonable. First, it was my friends. Or my lack of them, except for the Iron Saints. I'd mentioned wanting to have Gunnar over for dinner to see the new house. Richard's smile tightened. "Honey," he said gently, "I know you care about those people. But look at this from my perspective. I'm a public figure. My reputation is everything. Maya is going to be starting at a private preschool. We can't have men like that associated with us. It's a security risk. It's a social risk. You understand, don't you? It's for Maya's future. And I did understand. Or I told myself I did. I wanted Maya to have that future. So when Gunnar called my old cell, I didn't answer. A week later, Richard bought me a new phone with a new number. A fresh start, he called it. He said my old number was probably on all sorts of lists from my old apartment. It was a security upgrade. Then it was my independence. I didn't have a job anymore, obviously. When I asked about getting my own bank account, just for spending money, he laughed. Darling, you don't need to worry about that. He handed me a platinum credit card. This is linked to the household account. Buy whatever you want. Anything at all. My assistant, Philip, handles all the bills, so you don't have to think about a thing. Just enjoy your life. Enjoy being a mother. I didn't realize until I tried to buy a simple bus pass online, just to feel normal, that the card was flagged. Philip called me 20 minutes later. Mrs. Sterling? Was that a legitimate purchase? The Transit Authority. I'm afraid Mr. Sterling has a block on public transportation. Security protocols. He'd prefer you use the private car service. I was embarrassed. I told him it was a mistake. Slowly, my world shrank until it was just the walls of that mansion. I had a driver, but I had to schedule him 24 hours in advance and provide a destination. I had money, but every cent was tracked. I had a daughter, but her schedule was managed by Clara, the nanny, who reported directly to Richard. I was lonely. I was so lonely. The first real betrayal, the first time I felt fear, happened about 6 months into the marriage. Maya was 5 by then, and she missed the park. The public park, with the old metal slide and the squeaky swings, not the sterile, perfectly manicured playground on the estate. I was feeling rebellious. I told the driver to take us there. I didn't tell Philip the real destination. I just gave him the address of a bakery nearby and said we'd walk from there. It was a beautiful afternoon. Maya was laughing, running around with other kids. I was sitting on a bench, just breathing in the non-Sterling air. It felt amazing. Then a man sat down next to me. He was just a regular guy walking his dog. We started talking. About the weather, about his dog, about Maya. It was normal. It was 5 minutes of normal conversation. When I got back to the car, my driver, a man named Frank who had always been kind, wouldn't look at me. The ride home was silent. When I walked into the house, Richard was standing in the foyer. Not in his study, not in the living room. Just standing, waiting. "Where were you?" he asked. His voice was flat, cold. It wasn't the voice he used for parties. I took Maya to the park. I stammered. The one on Oak Street. The one I told you was not safe. It wasn't a question. Richard, it was fine. She had fun. I just wanted. Who was the man? I froze. What? What man? The man on the bench. Frank said you were talking to him for 10 minutes. My blood ran cold. He was just a guy. We were talking about his dog. Richard, it was nothing. You're scaring me. He stepped closer, and for the first time, I saw something ugly in his eyes. It wasn't anger. It was possession. It was the look of a man whose favorite toy had just been touched by someone else. "I am trying," he said, his voice dangerously low, "to keep you safe. I am trying to give you a better life. And you repay me by sneaking around, going to filthy public places, and flirting with strangers." Flirting? I was not flirting. I was just talking. "It stops now," he said. "You obviously can't be trusted to make good decisions. Frank is fired for allowing this." "No, Richard, it wasn't his fault. I made him. And you," he continued, ignoring me, "will no longer be leaving the estate without my express permission. And you will not be taking Maya anywhere. Clara will handle her outings from now on. You've put my daughter in danger for the last time." He turned and walked away. Just like that. I stood there shaking. He had taken my daughter. He had fired a man for my mistake. He had twisted a simple conversation into an act of betrayal. Later that night, he came into the bedroom. I was pretending to be asleep. He didn't turn on the light. He just lay down and pulled me against him. He was gentle again. "I'm sorry I was harsh, Tess," he whispered into my hair. You scared me. I can't stand the thought of anyone else even looking at you. You're mine. And I get jealous. It's because I love you so much. The most terrifying part? I believed him. I actually apologized. I apologized for making him jealous. I promised I would never, ever do it again. That was the first time he locked the cage. And I was the one who handed him the key. I had proven Gunnar right. Richard Sterling didn't just want to be with me. He wanted to own me. And the worst part was, I was letting him. Life after the park incident was quiet. I became a ghost in my own home. I did exactly what Richard wanted. I stayed on the estate. I read the books his assistant Philip ordered for me. I sat with Maya and Clara for exactly 1 hour of structured play each afternoon. I smiled at his dinners. I wore the clothes he picked out. And I never, ever asked to leave. I thought this was what I had to do to earn back his trust, to make him see that I was grateful, that I was loyal. He was pleased. His affection returned, but it felt different. It was the way he'd pat the head of one of his prized racehorses after it won a race. It was a reward for good behavior. About a month into this new, suffocating routine, he brought it up. We were in his study. He was drinking something dark in a heavy glass, and I was sitting on the sofa opposite his desk, the one I wasn't usually allowed to sit on. "Tess," he said, swirling the glass. "We need to talk about the future." My stomach tightened. I thought I was in trouble again. "Okay. Is everything all right?" "Everything is perfect." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "You've been wonderful lately. Truly. You've adapted beautifully. Maya is thriving. But there's one piece missing." He stood up and walked over to the window, looking out over his perfect, dark lawns. "I want a child," he said. I was confused. "You have a child. You have Maya." He turned around, and his expression was intense. "No, Tess. I love Maya. You know I do. I've given her my name. But she's not ours. She's not of my blood." I flinched. It was the first time he'd ever made that distinction, so clearly. "I want an heir," he said, walking toward me. He knelt in front of me, taking my hands. His were warm, but his grip was tight. "I want our baby. A son. A true Sterling. Someone to carry on my legacy. Think of it, Tess. A brother for Maya. It would complete us. It would bind us together in a way nothing else could." He was using his perfect husband voice, the one that had convinced me to give up my friends, my phone, my entire life. "Don't you want that?" he whispered. "Don't you want to give Maya a real family? Don't you want to finally silence my mother for good? A baby, our baby, would be the one thing she could never argue with. You would be the mother of a Sterling heir." I was so desperate for a way to fix things. I was so desperate for him to love me again for real. I was so desperate to feel like I belonged in this cold, empty house. I looked at this powerful man kneeling at my feet, begging me for a child. It felt like he was giving me back some power. It felt like he was finally, truly committing to me. I thought, this is it. This is the one thing I can do that no one else can. This will make me invaluable. This will make him trust me again. This will make us a real family. "Yes," I whispered, tears welling in my eyes. "Yes, Richard. I want that. More than anything." His face lit up. He kissed me. A deep, passionate kiss that felt like a promise. "That's my girl," he murmured. "You've made me the happiest man in the world." That night, for the first time in a month, I felt hope. The hope lasted exactly 12 hours. The next morning, I woke up alone. When I went downstairs, Philip, his assistant, was waiting for me in the breakfast room. He handed me a leather-bound folder and a cup of green-colored juice. "Good morning, Mrs. Sterling," he said, not a trace of emotion in his voice. "Mr. Sterling wanted you to have this." I opened the folder. It was a schedule for me. 9 a.m., nutritional supplement. 10 a.m., prenatal yoga with instructor. 12 p.m., lunch, menu attached. 3 p.m., consultation with Dr. Vance. 6 p.m., dinner, menu attached. 9 p.m., vitamins. "What is this?" I asked, looking at the foul-smelling green juice. "Mr. Sterling has retained Dr. Vance, the foremost fertility specialist in the country. He wants to ensure every variable is optimized. That is your kale and spirulina tonic. I have a doctor. Dr. Allen. She's my OB-GYN. Dr. Allen has been relieved, Philip said flatly. Dr. Vance will be handling your care from now on. He'll be here at 3. Please be ready. The shift was immediate. The romance from the night before was gone. This wasn't a loving act between a husband and wife. It was a business transaction. I had agreed to the terms, and now production was beginning. Dr. Vance was a cold, thin man who treated me like a specimen. He took vials and vials of blood. He asked me humiliatingly personal questions in front of a nurse who took notes. He gave me a thermometer and a chart. You will track your basal temperature every morning. Mr. Sterling wants this process to be efficient. The love that I thought would be part of this was replaced by cold, scheduled encounters. Richard would text Philip, who would then inform me, Mr. Sterling will be home at 8 p.m. Please be ready by 8:30. It was clinical. It was degrading. I was no longer a wife. I was a vessel. The worst part was, it wasn't working. Month after month, the answer was no. And with every no, Richard grew colder, more distant. The rewards for good behavior stopped. His kindness was replaced by a simmering, impatient anger. Are you sure you're following the diet tests? He'd snap if I so much as looked at a bread roll at dinner. Dr. Vance says your stress levels are high. You're not trying hard enough. You need to relax. Your anxiety is making this difficult. He was blaming me. I was failing. I was the problem. The clearest sign I missed came from Beatrice. She was at the house for one of our painfully silent family dinners. I was just picking at my food, a specially prepared plate of steamed vegetables and quinoa. Richard had been called away for a phone call. Beatrice leaned across the table, her diamonds glittering. You're looking peaky, Teresa, she said, taking a delicate sip of her wine. This process doesn't seem to be agreeing with you. I do hope you're not a disappointment. Richard has so much riding on this. I'm fine, I said stiffly. She let out a small, cruel laugh. You know, his first wife, the one before you, the society wife, she couldn't give him one either. Utterly barren. He doesn't tolerate failure in his investments, dear. He liquidates them. I felt sick. I'm not an investment, Beatrice. Oh, aren't you? She smiled. We all are in Richard's world. And right now your stock is dropping. When Richard came back to the table, he saw my face. He put his hand on my back. Is Mother bothering you? I just shook my head, too scared to speak. He looked at Beatrice, and she just smiled back at him. He didn't defend me. He didn't tell her off. He just sat down and said, Eat your dinner, Tess. Dr. Vance said you needed more greens. That night, I realized I hadn't just made a promise. I had entered a contract, and if I couldn't deliver on my end of the bargain, I would be liquidated. I was trapped. I had given him my body, my autonomy, my entire life, for a promise of a family that was turning into a waking nightmare. And I had no one to tell. I had no one to call. I had never been more alone. It's been almost a year since I agreed to give Richard an heir. A year of my life measured in pill bottles, temperature charts, and the sharp, stinging pinch of needles. I was 26 years old, and I felt 100. The hope I'd felt was long gone, replaced by a dull, constant dread. The process had become more invasive, more humiliating. I wasn't a person anymore. I was a project. And the project was failing. The hormones were the worst part. They had declared war on my body and my mind. One minute I'd be weeping uncontrollably because a commercial for soup came on TV, and the next I'd be filled with a simmering rage that had nowhere to go. I was bloated, I was exhausted, and I felt sick all the time. Richard, of course, used this against me. My genuine, chemically induced emotional state became his greatest weapon. Tess, you're being hysterical, he'd say calmly, when I tried to tell him I couldn't take another injection, that my whole stomach was one giant, purple bruise. Dr. Vance warned us about this. You need to get your emotions in check. This stress is why it's not working. I'm not being hysterical, Richard, I'm in pain. It's for our family, he'd reply, his voice cold. We can't talk about this when you're being so irrational. Pull yourself together. He was gaslighting me, and I was too fogged by the drugs to see it clearly. I just felt shame. I was failing him. I was weak. The real turning point, the first sliver of light in the fog, was Maya. She was 6 now. She was quiet, watchful, and smarter than any of us gave her credit for. She saw everything. She saw me wince when I sat down. She saw me hiding in the pantry, my hand over my mouth, trying to cry silently. She saw the nannies, the tutors, the staff, and she saw how they looked at me. With pity. One afternoon, she came into my bathroom without knocking. I was sitting on the edge of the tub, a syringe in my hand, tears streaming down my face. I just didn't have the strength to do it again. She didn't say anything at first. She just walked over, her little face a mask of adult concern, and put her small hand on my arm. "Mommy, are you sick?" I wiped my face, trying to smile. "No, sweetie. It's like vitamins. To make Mommy healthy." She looked from the needle to my face. "Does Daddy make you do that?" My blood turned to ice. She didn't ask if the doctor made me. She didn't ask if I wanted to. She asked if Daddy made me. My 6-year-old daughter saw the truth that I was trying to ignore. This wasn't a choice. It was a command. It's complicated, baby," I whispered. "I don't like it," she said, her lower lip trembling. "I don't like him being mad at you." "When is he mad at me?" I asked, my voice barely audible. "At night, when he thinks I'm asleep. His voice gets loud, like the thunder." I pulled her into a hug, my entire body shaking. I wasn't just failing as a wife. I was failing as a mother. I was teaching my daughter that this was what love looked like, that this was how a man treated a woman. That night, a new feeling started to burn through the hormonal fog, anger. I needed to find a way out, but I had nothing. No money, no friends, no car, no phone that wasn't tracked. To leave, I needed leverage. I needed information. I started watching, listening, pretending to be the docile, drugged-up wife, but I was paying attention. The first clue came from Philip, the assistant. I was in the kitchen, blending one of the sludge-green fertility smoothies I was forced to drink, and he was on the phone in the pantry, his voice low. He thought I was gone. "The payment to Oakwood is due," he said, sounding annoyed. "Yes, the usual amount. Just handle it, and make sure the renewal is routed through the secondary holding company. He'll have my hide if Mrs. Sterling 2.0 finds out about the account." Mrs. Sterling 2.0. He was talking about me. I quietly left the kitchen, the smoothie forgotten. I went to the library computer, the one Maya used for her educational games, and I Googled Oakwood. It wasn't a bank. It wasn't a holding company. Oakwood Private Care. A high-end, long-term residential treatment facility. The photos showed beautiful, serene grounds, but the website was all clinical language. Discreet, secure, complex psychiatric conditions. It was a mental hospital. A very expensive one. That night, I waited until Richard was in his study on one of his late-night calls. I went to our bedroom and I tried to sound casual, breezy. "Richard," I called, leaning against the doorframe. He looked up, annoyed by the interruption. "What is it, Tess?" "I was just thinking today. Philip mentioned something about a place called Oakwood. Is that one of your charities? It sounded interesting." He froze. It was tiny, just a fraction of a second, but I saw it. The mask slipped. His eyes went flat. Then, just as quickly, the charming, sad smile returned. He sighed, taking off his glasses and rubbing his eyes. He motioned for me to come in. "Sit down, Tess. I suppose you were bound to find out sooner or later." He waited until I was perched on the edge of the chair opposite his desk. "Annalise," he said, his voice full of practiced sadness. "My first wife. Oakwood is where she lives." Beatrice had mentioned a first wife. But I thought, lives? I assumed she passed away. "No, not physically." He steepled his fingers. "She's been at Oakwood for almost 8 years. She got sick, Tess. Mentally. Very, very sick." He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a confidential whisper. "She became paranoid, delusional. She started accusing me of terrible things. That I was controlling her. That I was trying to poison her. She became hysterical, violent. It was awful, watching the woman I loved just disappear. Lose her mind." He looked at me, his eyes full of fake sympathy. "That's why I'm so sensitive about your stress, honey. That's why I get so worried when you get emotional. I can't I just can't go through that again. It was a threat. It was the most brilliant, terrifying threat he could have possibly made. He hadn't just lied to me. He had shown me my future. He had just told me, in the kindest, most loving way possible, that if I ever crossed him, if I ever accused him, if I ever fought back, I would be the next hysterical, paranoid, delusional wife. He wasn't just gaslighting me. He was telling me he had a place to put me when I finally broke. I would be the next Annalise. The pressure mounted. A week later, Dr. Vance called us both into his office. His face was, "The last round of IVF failed," he said, not looking at me. He was speaking directly to Richard. "We've run every test. Mr. Sterling, as I've said, your results are exceptional. Well above average." He turned his cold eyes on me. "Tess, I'm afraid the issue is definitive. Your egg quality is extremely poor. They're simply not viable. At this point, no amount of hormones is going to change that." I should have felt relief. It was over. I was free. I looked at Richard. He had his arm around my shoulder, squeezing it gently. He looked like the perfect, heartbroken, supportive husband. "It's all right, darling," he said, kissing my temple. "We'll get through this. Thank you, doctor, for trying." We walked out. The second the car door closed, his hand dropped from my shoulder. He didn't speak the entire ride home. That night, he didn't come to my bedroom. He came to Maya's. I was in her room, reading her a bedtime story. He stood in the doorway, his shadow falling over her bed. "Tess, my study. Now." I tucked Maya in, my hands trembling. "I'll be right back, sweetie." I followed him to the study, and he closed the doors. The mask was gone. His face was pure, cold fury. "So you're broken," he said. It wasn't a question. "Richard, the doctor said. The doctor said you are the problem. I'm paying millions, millions, for the best medical care in the world, and you can't do the one simple thing you were meant to do. It's not my fault." I cried, the hormones and the fear and the anger all boiling over. "I've done everything you and that quack asked me to do. I've poisoned myself for you." "Poisoned yourself?" He laughed, a short, ugly sound. "You're being dramatic. You're just like her. Just like Annalise. Broken. Useless." He grabbed my arm, his fingers digging in hard. "Beatrice was right about you." He pulled me closer, his voice dropping to a hiss. "But there's one last option. An egg donor. Dr. Vance has acquired a selection. You will choose one. You will carry it. You will give me my son. And you will not fail me again." He wasn't asking. He was telling me. I was to be an incubator for a stranger's child. "And if I say no?" I whispered, terrified. He smiled. "Then you'll have plenty of time to rest. I hear the grounds at Oakwood are lovely this time of year. I'm sure Maya will eventually understand." He let go of my arm, leaving angry red marks. He thought he had me. He thought I was trapped, that I was just another broken toy he could lock away. He didn't know that my daughter's words had given me a reason to fight. He didn't know that his lie about Annalise wasn't just a threat. It was a clue. I had to find out what really happened to Annalise Sterling. I had to find the truth before I became her. The ultimatum was clear: become an incubator for a stranger's child, or be locked away in a high-end mental hospital, never to see my daughter again. I had no choice. I had to play along. "Okay," I whispered to Richard, the words tasting like poison. "Okay. For our family. I'll do it." The relief on his face was terrifying. He smiled, pulling me into a hug, stroking my hair. "That's my girl," he murmured. "I knew you'd see reason. I knew you were strong enough." He was so happy, so supportive again. He scheduled the first appointment with Dr. Vance to review donor profiles. It was in 3 days. He also started planning for the annual Sterling Foundation Gala. It was the biggest social event of his year. "And Tess," he said, holding my chin, forcing me to look at him. "It's vital we present a united front, especially after all this difficulty. You will be at my side. You will smile. You will show everyone how happy we are, how excited we are for the next step." I smiled back, a hollow, brittle thing. "Of course, Richard. Whatever you need." I had 3 days. 3 days to find a way out before I was either impregnated or committed. The day of the gala, I put my plan, as half-formed as it was, into action. I spent the morning in my room, making myself look worse. I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. I rubbed my eyes until they were red and puffy. When the hair and makeup team arrived, I sent them away. 2 hours before we were supposed to leave, I broke down. Richard found me on the bathroom floor, sobbing, hyperventilating. It wasn't entirely an act. The fear and the dread were very, very real. I can't. I choked out, pulling at my hair. I can't go, Richard. They'll all look at me. They'll all know. They'll know I'm a failure. That I'm broken. I can't fake it. Please don't make me go. I watched his face. He wasn't concerned. He was annoyed. My hysteria was an inconvenience on his big night. But then, I saw the calculation. He saw the opportunity. Shoo, it's okay, he said, his voice all fake sympathy. He helped me up and led me to the bed. You're right. You're not well. You've been under too much strain. It's my fault for pushing you. He stroked my cheek. You stay here. You rest. I'll make your excuses. I'll tell them the fertility treatments have been overwhelming, that you're just delicate right now. He was establishing my narrative for me. The unstable, hysterical, broken wife. Will you be okay? I whispered, playing my part. I'll be fine, he said, kissing my forehead. I'll have Philip check on you. Just rest. Sleep. We'll talk about the donor profiles tomorrow when you're feeling stronger. He left. I listened as his car, and the cars of a security detail, pulled away down the long drive. The house fell silent. I waited 20 minutes. Then I moved. Maya was in her room with Clara, the nanny. I told Clara I was feeling a bit better and wanted to read Maya her bedtime story myself. Clara looked at me with such pity. Of course, Mrs. Sterling. I read Maya 2 stories, my voice shaking. I kissed her good night. I love you more than anything in the world, baby. You know that, right? I love you too, Mommy, she mumbled, already half asleep. I tucked her in and went to Clara, who was in the hall. Clara, I said, my voice low and urgent. I need your help. She recoiled. Mrs. Sterling, I can't. Whatever it is. I'm not sick, Clara. I'm trapped, and he's going to take Maya from me. I didn't have time to be gentle. I saw the fear in her eyes. She knew. She knew something was wrong. I need to get into his study, I said. I know he keeps a spare key. Please, Clara. For Maya. If he takes me away, what happens to her? Who will protect her from him? That hit her. Her face crumpled. She wrestled with herself for a long, agonizing second. Then she nodded. In the library, she whispered, not looking at me. The big red book on the history of Rome. Inside the cover. Please, don't tell him I will never, I said. Thank you. I ran to the library, my heart hammering. I found the book, and there it was, a thin silver key. His study was just as he'd left it. Perfect, cold, and smelling faintly of his expensive scotch. I went straight to the safe behind the painting. I'd watched him open it so many times. He was arrogant. He thought I was stupid. The combination wasn't a birthday. It was the date he'd discovered me. The date he'd first spoken to me in the hallway while I was buffing the floors. My origin story. The safe clicked open. It was full of files, property deeds, bearer bonds. I ignored them. I was looking for one thing. Annalise. I didn't find it, but I found another file tucked in the back. A thin, red-bordered manila folder. It wasn't labeled with a name. Just R.S., private medical. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely open it. It was a medical report from a different doctor. Dr. Alistair Finch. It was dated 2 years ago, right before he met me. I scanned the page, my eyes blurring. I saw a lot of medical terms I didn't understand. But 2 words, repeated over and over, stood out. Azoospermia. Sertoli cell-only syndrome. I didn't know what they meant. I left the file on the desk, left the safe open, and ran back to the library computer, the one Maya used. My fingers flew across the keys. Azoospermia, the medical term for when there is 0 sperm in the ejaculate. A cause of male infertility. My breath hitched. I typed in the second term. Sertoli cell-only syndrome, a condition in which the testicles contain no sperm-producing cells. It is a definitive and untreatable cause of infertility. Definitive. Untreatable. I stared at the screen, the words blurring. The room started to spin. It wasn't me. It had never been me. He was sterile. He knew he was sterile before he even met me. All of it. The year of injections, the pain, the bruises, the hormonal rages, the shame, the humiliation, all of it was a lie. Dr. Vance, with his exceptional results for Richard and poor viability for me, was a liar. Why? Why would he put me through that? And then, the full, crushing weight of the truth hit me. It hit me, so hard I had to grab the desk to keep from falling. It wasn't about a baby. It was never about a baby. It was about building a case. It was about proving I was the broken one. He was documenting my failure. He was driving me insane with a cocktail of hormones and constant psychological abuse, all to create a medical file that would prove I was unstable and hysterical. He was grooming me for Oakwood, just like Annalise. I stumbled back to the study, my legs numb. I looked at the open safe, at the file on his desk. The lie was so monstrous, so complete. I was wondering how long it would take you. My heart stopped. Richard was standing in the doorway. He wasn't in his tuxedo. He was wearing a dark tracksuit. He'd never gone to the gala. He looked at the open safe, at the file on his desk, at my terrified, shattered face. The mask of the charming billionaire was gone. His eyes were cold, flat, and dead. "You really are stupid," he said, walking slowly into the room. "Did you think I didn't know Clara had that key? Did you think I didn't have cameras in the library?" He'd set me up. The gala, my breakdown, all of it. He'd wanted me to find this. This was the final act. "It's you," I whispered, the file rattling in my hand. "It was always you." He smiled. "It doesn't matter who it is, Tess. It only matters who everyone believes it is. And they're going to believe me, the devoted husband, a wife driven mad by her own infertility. It's tragic. You're a monster. I'm a pragmatist." He lunged. It wasn't a slap. It was a closed-fist punch to the stomach that sent me gasping to the floor. Before I could even breathe, he grabbed me by the hair and slammed my head against the leg of his massive desk. Pain, white-hot and blinding, exploded behind my eyes. "You ungrateful whore!" he screamed, his voice no longer smooth and cultured, but a harsh, guttural snarl. He kicked me in the ribs. "I gave you everything. You were trash. You were nothing. I made you." I curled into a ball, trying to protect myself. He was ranting, the real him finally pouring out. "You were just another project. And now you're just another broken toy." He hauled me to my feet and hit me again, a backhand across the face that split my lip. I fell against the wall, tasting blood. "Mommy!" We both froze. Maya was standing in the doorway, her little fist rubbing her sleepy eyes, holding her worn teddy bear. She stared. Her eyes went from her father, his face twisted in rage, his hand raised, to me, crumpled on the floor, bleeding. Her face didn't crumple. She didn't scream. Her eyes just widened in pure, unadulterated terror. I saw the exact moment she understood. "Maya, no! Run!" I screamed, a bloody sob tearing from my throat. She turned and ran. Her little footsteps pounded down the marble hallway. I tried to scramble after her, but Richard just laughed. A cold, empty sound. "Where is she going to go? She has no one. You have no one." He calmly walked over to his desk, picked up his phone, and dialed. He looked down at me, bleeding on his priceless rug. "Philip," he said, his voice perfectly calm again. "Call Dr. Vance. Tell him to prep the Oakwood admission. Mrs. Sterling has had a violent, psychotic break. She attacked me. Yes, it's terrible. Thank God Maya was asleep." He hung up, straightened his tracksuit, and walked out of the study. I heard the heavy click of the lock. He left me. He left me bleeding, broken and locked in. He had won. He had taken my daughter. He had taken my sanity, and now he was taking my freedom. I was completely and utterly destroyed. I lay on the floor for I don't know how long. The blood from my lip had dried into a crust on my chin. The side of my head was throbbing, a deep, sickening ache. But the physical pain was nothing. It was a distant echo. The only thing I could hear was the click of that lock. My panic wasn't for me. It was for Maya. Where did she run? He said she was asleep, but he was lying. He lied about everything. Where is my baby? I dragged myself up, using the desk for support. My ribs screamed in protest. I staggered to the door, pounding on the solid wood with my good hand. Maya! Maya, answer me! Clara! Someone, help me! He's locked me in. My voice was raw, hoarse. I heard footsteps in the hall, heavy running. Thank God. Clara! Someone! The lock turned. The door swung open. It wasn't Clara. It was Dr. Vance. Behind him stood two very large, very broad-shouldered men in dark blue scrubs. They looked like bouncers, not orderlies. Dr. Vance looked at me, at my split lip, at the terror in my eyes, and his face was a mask of clinical, cold concern. He was holding a syringe. Tess, he said, his voice calm and soothing, like he was talking to a spooked animal. It's all right. You've had a terrible episode, a complete psychotic break. We're here to help you. Help me. I backed away, stumbling over an ottoman. You're part of it. You lied. He's sterile. It's in the file. I pointed frantically at the desk, at the open safe. Dr. Vance just shook his head slowly, sadly. He didn't even look. Patient is delusional, fixated on the safe. Textbook paranoia, he said to one of the men. And then he appeared. Richard. He was standing behind them, his face a perfect mask of husbandly anguish. He had changed into a clean shirt, and he was holding Maya. She was wrapped in his arms, her face buried in his neck. She was trembling. Daddy! She was whimpering. Daddy, what's wrong with Mommy? Shh, baby, it's okay, Richard murmured, stroking her hair. He looked at me, his eyes full of fake tears. Tess, my God, look at what you've done. What I've done. I shrieked. He hit me. Richard, tell them. Tell them what you did. Maya, baby, please. I looked at my daughter, desperate. Maya, tell Dr. Vance. Tell him what you saw. Tell him Daddy hit Mommy. Maya flinched. She turned her head, burying her face deeper into Richard's shoulder. She wouldn't look at me. She was too terrified. He had gotten to her in those few minutes. He had told her God knows what. That Mommy was sick. That Mommy was crazy. That Mommy had fallen and was saying bad things. You see, Doctor? Richard said, his voice breaking with false emotion. She's violent. She attacked me. And when I tried to restrain her, she threw herself against the desk. She's raving. She's frightening our daughter. She's a danger to herself. She's a danger to Maya. No! I screamed. It was a raw, animal sound of betrayal. He's lying. The file. The red file. It proves it. He's sterile. Dr. Vance gave a small nod. The two men moved. I tried to fight. I tried to get to Maya. He's the one who's sick. He's the monster. They grabbed my arms. I was strong with adrenaline, but they were stronger. They were professionals. They held me in an iron grip. This will just help you calm down, Dr. Vance said, approaching me with the syringe. No. Get away from me. Maya, I love you. Don't believe him. Run. Dr. Vance was efficient. He slid the needle into my arm. I felt the cold liquid flood my veins. My legs went weak. The room started to tilt. My screams for Maya turned into a thick, slurred mumble. The last thing I saw before the darkness swallowed me was Richard's face. He was looking at me over Maya's head. His heartbroken expression was gone. He was smiling. A cold, victorious, triumphant smile. He had won. I woke up choking on the smell of lavender and disinfectant. My head was pounding. My mouth was full of cotton. For a second, I had no idea where I was. This wasn't my room. The walls were a soft, pale blue. There were no pictures. The furniture was all light-colored wood with rounded edges. No sharp corners. The window was large, but I could see the glass was thick, reinforced, and there was no handle. The door had no knob on the inside, just a smooth, flat plate. This was Oakwood Private Care. I was in the loony bin. I tried to get up, but my limbs felt like they were filled with sand. I was wearing a soft, cotton pajama set that wasn't mine. A nurse came in. She was young, with kind eyes that didn't match her firm smile. Good morning, Tess. I'm Nurse Bowen. Dr. Vance has you on a mild sedative to help you rest. How are you feeling? Where is my daughter? My voice was a croak. Your daughter is safe, dear. She's with her father, Nurse Bowen said, checking a chart. We're just going to focus on you right now. Getting you stable. I'm not unstable. I'm not crazy. He hit me. He's sterile. He's been lying to everyone. The nurse just kept smiling. She wrote something down on her chart. Patient is still fixated on her persecutory delusions. We'll discuss this with Dr. Vance in your session. And that was my new reality. For 2 weeks, I was in hell. Every time I told the truth, it was recorded as a delusion. Every time I got angry, it was anxiety and lack of emotional control. Every time I cried for my daughter, it was emotional instability. They had an answer for everything. I was a patient, which meant I had no rights. I was no longer a person. I was a diagnosis. I begged to make a phone call. They said, all communication must be approved by your husband, who is also your medical guardian. Richard, my guardian. He had me declared legally incompetent, using Dr. Vance's expert testimony and my violent episode as proof. I was trapped, utterly and completely. The final, crushing blow came not from Richard, but from his mother. Beatrice Sterling walked into my pale blue room one afternoon, looking like she was visiting a zoo. She was wearing a perfectly tailored suit and carrying a designer handbag. Well, Teresa, she said, looking around in distaste. You've certainly made a mess of things. Get out, I whispered from the bed. Oh, I'm not staying. She placed her handbag on the rounded table. I'm just here to deliver the news. Richard has filed for divorce, of course, on grounds of mental instability and extreme cruelty. It's uncontested, naturally, since you're in here. I felt my stomach clench. Maya, he's also filed for sole, permanent custody of the child. And he will get it. He has a mountain of evidence, you see. Dr. Vance's entire file on your failure and instability. The police report from your attack. Maya's own testimony about how you were screaming and frightening her. It's all very tragic. She smiled, a thin, cruel slash of red lipstick. And, she continued, since you are unviable, he's already moved on. He's found a surrogate, a much more reliable, less dramatic vessel. She's already been implanted. With a donor embryo, of course. He'll finally have his heir. She stood up, smoothing her skirt. He's replacing you in every way, dear. It's almost like you never existed at all. She walked to the door and paused. Don't bother trying to fight it. Annalise did. She tried to tell everyone he was the one with the problem. Look where it got her. She's in the long-term wing. Hasn't seen the outside world in 8 years. You'll be joining her soon enough. The door clicked shut, leaving me in the lavender-scented silence. She had taken the last little ember of fight I had left and smothered it with her heel. I was alone. I was legally insane. My daughter was gone, stolen by my abuser, and she was being taught to fear me. I was being replaced by another woman, another baby. I was going to die in this room, just like Annalise. I curled up on the bed, staring at the pale blue walls, and for the first time, I understood true, absolute, bottomless despair. I had nothing. I was nothing. I just gave up. I spent days, maybe weeks, in that medicated fog. Time in Oakwood doesn't move. It just congeals. It's a thick, lavender-scented syrup you're trapped in. I was the perfect patient. I took my pills. I ate the soft food. I sat in group therapy and stared at the wall. When Dr. Vance asked me how I was, I said, better. I had given up. The fight was gone. Beatrice's words had been the final blow. I was just waiting to be transferred to the long-term wing, to become another ghost like Annalise. The catalyst wasn't a grand explosion. It was a whisper. It was Nurse Bowen, the young one with the kind eyes. She was checking my blood pressure, her touch gentle, not clinical. You're doing so much better, Tess, she said quietly, not looking at her chart but at me. We're all really pleased with your progress. I just nodded, my eyes on the blank wall. She sighed, a small, frustrated sound. My little boy, he's 6, she said, her voice dropping. He's all I think about. He fell off his bike yesterday. Scraped his whole knee. Cried for an hour. She paused, and I could feel her looking at me. But you know what? He got right back on. He was terrified, but he did it. Kids are. They're tougher than we are. I didn't react. But inside that fog, a single, Sharp thought pierced through Maya. Maya saw me bleed. Maya saw me get dragged away. What is she thinking? Is she tough? Or is she just terrified? Nurse Bowen's words weren't a kindness. They were a challenge. She was reminding me what I was supposed to be fighting for. That night, for the first time, I didn't swallow the little white pill. I palmed it, hiding it under my tongue until the nurse left. I did it again the next night. And the next. The fog began to lift. And when it did, the despair came rushing back, but this time, it had an edge. It was cold, and it was sharp. It was anger. Beatrice's threat came back to me. Annalise is in the long-term wing. It was a threat, but it was also a piece of information. I had to find her. I redoubled my efforts. I became the star patient of Oakwood. I started talking in group therapy. I didn't tell the truth. I knew that was pointless. I told them what they wanted to hear. I'm starting to remember things more clearly, I said to Dr. Vance, my eyes downcast. It's like a bad dream. I was so stressed about the IVF, about failing Richard. I think I just snapped. I invented that story about the file to hurt him. Because I was hurting. I saw the look of triumph in Dr. Vance's eyes. I was accepting my diagnosis. A week later, I was granted privileges. I was allowed 1 hour a day in the communal garden, a high-walled courtyard where the lower-risk patients from all wings could mingle. I spent the first 2 days just watching. The garden was full of ghosts, people shuffling, staring at flowers, talking to themselves. On the 3rd day, I saw her. She was sitting on a stone bench, away from everyone else, under a willow tree. She was sketching in a worn, leather-bound book. She was thin, her hair almost white, and she looked decades older than she should have. But her eyes, when she glanced up at me, were not dead. They were sharp. They were furious. I sat down on the other end of the bench. Neither of us spoke for a long time. So, she finally said, not looking up from her sketch, "You're 2.0. My blood ran cold. He told me you were sick," I whispered. She let out a dry, rattling laugh. "Oh, I'm sick of him. I'm sick of this place. He's replacing you with 3.0, you know. A surrogate. He's very predictable." She turned a page in her sketchbook. It was a drawing. A detailed, perfect sketch of Richard's face. His eyes were cold, dead. Underneath it, she'd written, azoospermia, narcissistic personality disorder. Criminal. "You knew," I breathed. "I'm the one who found out," she said. "I was his partner, not just his wife. I helped build Sterling Enterprises. I knew where all the real bodies were buried. When I confronted him about his infertility, back when we were trying, well, he couldn't have his business partner knowing his deepest, most pathetic secret. So I had a breakdown. Convenient." She looked at me, her gaze pinning me to the bench. "He didn't just lock you up because you found the file, did he? You did something else. You fought back." "He hit me," I whispered, the shame washing over me. "In front of my daughter." Annalise's eyes hardened. "He's a coward. He only hits when he knows he's won." She closed her sketchbook. "But he hasn't won yet." "Not quite." "What do you mean?" "We're trapped. We're legally insane. He owns us. He thinks he does." Annalise leaned in. "I've been in here for 8 years, Tess. I'm not crazy. I'm patient. I've been watching, listening. I have friends in low places, the kind of staff who hate men like Richard Sterling more than they like their paycheck." She reached into the pocket of her baggy linen pants and pulled out a tiny, silver object. A USB drive. "He was sloppy with me," she whispered. "He thought I was just a socialite. When he liquidated our joint assets, he thought he destroyed everything. He missed a server. A backup. I've had a friend on the outside, a real friend, digging for years. It's all here." "What is it?" "Everything. The real financials. Not just his infertility, Tess. That's for children. This is the real thing. Proof. He's been laundering tens of millions of dollars, using shell companies. And his favorite one? The one that's been paying for my care all these years." She smiled, a truly terrifying sight. "Oakwood Private Care. Dr. Vance isn't just his pet doctor. He's his business partner. Richard is a part owner of this hospital. He's been laundering his dirty money by paying for ghost patients. Locking up inconvenient wives is just a perk of the job. My mind was reeling. This was bigger than I could have ever imagined. But how do we get it out? That's been the problem, Annalise said. I'm watched. I'm a lifer. But you're new. You're the recovering patient. You're the one who is making progress. You still have a chance. She pressed the drive into my hand. It was warm. There's a laundry orderly, she said, speaking fast. His name is Miguel. He hates Vance. Hates this whole place. His truck leaves every Friday at 4 p.m. That's tomorrow. You have to get this to him. Slip it into the pocket of his jacket. It hangs on the hook by the laundry chute in the staff wing. You can get there during your communal art privilege. It's a risk. A massive one. If you're caught, I'll be here forever, I finished. Sedated. Gone. Exactly. This was it. The impossible choice. Stay broken, stay the ghost, and let him win completely or fight back. Take this 1-in-a-million shot, trusting a crazy woman, a USB drive, and an orderly I'd never met. Who do I send it to? I asked. The police. They'll just call Richard. It can't be cops, Annalise agreed. It has to be someone outside his world. Someone he can't bully or bury. I thought of the only man who had ever warned me. The only man who lived by a code Richard couldn't even understand. Gunner, I said. The Iron Saints. I hadn't spoken his name in years. It felt strange on my tongue. Annalise nodded. A biker. Perfect. Can you remember the address? It's burned into my memory, I said. It's the only home I really had. I slipped the drive into the waistband of my cotton pants. It felt like it was burning a hole in my skin. Be careful, 2.0, Annalise whispered, opening her sketchbook again. Don't get caught. I went back to my room. I didn't sleep. I just stared at the ceiling, my heart hammering a rhythm against my ribs. For the first time in a year, I wasn't just a vessel. I wasn't just a patient. I was a bomb. The next day, at 3:45 p.m., I walked to the art room. I told the nurse I needed to use the restroom. The staff hallway was just around the corner. I was shaking so hard I could barely walk. I saw the jacket. I saw the laundry chute. The hall was empty. I slipped my hand into the pocket of the jacket, my fingers fumbling. I dropped the USB drive inside, along with a small, folded piece of art paper. On it, I had scrawled the Iron Saints clubhouse address, Gunner's name, and 7 words. He's sterile. He's laundering money. He hit me. He's here. Save Maya. Please. I walked back to the art room, my legs jelly. I had done it. I had made my choice. I had no idea if Miguel would find it, if he'd care, if he'd mail it. I had no idea if Gunner was even still there. I had just jumped off a cliff, praying there wasn't a rock at the bottom. All I could do was wait and hope. It was the most terrifying feeling I'd ever had. I spent the next 2 days in a new kind of hell. The waiting. The fog from the pills was gone, and now every second was sharp, brittle, and terrifying. Every time a key scraped in a lock, I jumped. Every time Dr. Vance came by on his rounds, I had to force my face into a mask of calm, sedated acceptance. I could feel his eyes on me, suspicious. My progress had been too good. I had no idea if Miguel had found the drive, if he'd mailed it, if Gunner had even received it. I was in a blind agony of hope and fear. On the 3rd day, Dr. Vance came into my room. He wasn't smiling. Tess, he said. Richard is coming this afternoon. He'll be here with Maya. We're going to have a final family session. To provide closure for Maya. My blood froze. Closure. I've made my final recommendation, Dr. Vance said, his eyes like ice. You're clearly not stable enough for outpatient care. Your delusions, while managed with medication, are deep-seated. We're transferring you to the long-term wing tomorrow. To be with Annalise. This is your chance to say goodbye to your daughter. This was it. He was done playing. I had failed. The drive hadn't worked. Gunner wasn't coming. I was going to be buried alive. They led me to a conference room. It was sterile, with a long, polished table. Richard was already there, at the head of the table, sipping a glass of water. He looked relaxed, triumphant. Tess, he said, his voice dripping with fake sympathy. I'm glad you're lucid. Dr. Vance and I felt it was important for you to have this. For Maya's sake. A moment later, Clara brought Maya in. My baby. She looked smaller. Pale. She was clutching a new, expensive-looking doll, and she wouldn't look at me. Her eyes were fixed on the floor. Maya, sweetheart, Richard said, his voice syrupy sweet. Go on. Tell Mommy it's okay. Tell her you're happy now with Daddy. Tell her you're not scared anymore. He was recording this. I saw a small red light on a digital recorder next to Dr. Vance's file. This was it. His final piece of evidence. Maya, I whispered. My voice was broken. Baby, look at me. Please. She looked up. Her little face was tight with a terror that ripped my heart out. She was trying so hard to be brave, but she was trapped, just like me. Richard, don't. I begged, the last of my pride crumbling. Please. You've won. You have everything. Just don't do this to her. Richard actually smirked. I know, but I want to hear her say it. I want you to hear her choose me. He put his hand on Maya's shoulder. Go on, Maya. Tell Mommy goodbye. Maya's little chin began to tremble. She opened her mouth to speak. And that's when we heard it. It wasn't a knock. It was a boom. A crash from the end of the hall. Shouting. The sound of men roaring, not talking. The sound of something heavy breaking. Dr. Vance jumped to his feet, his face pale. What in God's name? Richard's smirk vanished. Security. The conference room door didn't open. It exploded inward, splintering off its hinges and crashing to the floor. And standing in the smoke-filled, or was that just dust, doorway was Gunnar. He was a monster from a different world. He was huge, in his full Iron Saints cut, his face a mask of cold fury. Behind him, 3 other bikers, just as massive, fanned out, blocking the entire hallway. The 2 orderlies who had been outside were not visible. Dr. Vance yelped. You can't be in here. This is a private medical facility. I'm calling the police. Gunnar didn't even look at him. His eyes found me. He saw the faint yellow-green bruise on my cheekbone, the hollow terror in my eyes. Tessie, he said. His voice was a low, gravelly rumble that shook the very air in the room. That one word broke me. I collapsed, sobbing, my hand over my mouth. Gunnar! Richard was on his feet, his face purple with rage. Get out! Get these animals out of my hospital. Clara, take Maya. Now! But before Clara could even move, Maya ran. She didn't run to Clara. She didn't run to Richard. She ran straight past her father's legs, her doll forgotten, and launched herself at Gunnar. She grabbed the leather of his cut, burying her face in his leg, her small body shaking with sobs. Gunnar! Gunnar, you came. I told you. I told you. Everyone froze. Richard. Me. Even Gunnar looked completely bewildered. He looked down at the 6-year-old girl clinging to him, his huge, calloused hand hovering over her head unsure. Told me, what little bird, he rumbled, his voice suddenly gentle. I came for your mama. Maya looked up, her face a mess of tears and fury. And she screamed it. She screamed it at the top of her lungs, the words that would change everything. The billionaire is beating my mama. He hit her. He hit her, and he locked her in the study. I saw him. I saw the blood. I ran to your house, but you weren't there. I ran and I ran. The silence that followed was deafening. It was absolute. Richard lunged for Maya. She's lying. She's hysterical. Just like her mother. Gunnar moved with a speed that was terrifying. He put one giant arm in front of Maya, shielding her, and with the other he shoved Richard. It wasn't a punch. It was an open-palmed push that sent Richard flying back into his chair, which toppled over, dumping him on the floor in a heap. I ran. Maya sobbed into Gunnar's leg. I ran out the gate. I ran to the park. I found a lady. I told her to call you. I gave her your number, the one Mommy made me memorize for emergencies. Gunnar's hard face was unreadable. He looked at me, over Maya's head. You made her memorize my number. I did. I wept. Years ago. Just in case. I never thought. She's a child. Dr. Vance sputtered, fumbling for his phone. She's confused. This is a fabricated memory. It's coercion. Shut up, Doc, Gunnar said, his voice flat. He reached into the inside pocket of his cut and pulled out the small, silver USB drive. He tossed it onto the table, where it skidded to a stop next to Richard's spilled water. "Your friend on the inside, Annalise," Gunnar said, his eyes finding mine. "She's got good instincts. The guy she had you send this to? He's not just one of my boys. He's an ex-IRS forensic accountant. Took him about 2 hours to untangle this mess." He jabbed a finger at the drive. "Seems you've been a very busy boy, Dr. Vance. And you, Sterling." Richard, scrambling to his feet, went from purple to a sick, pasty gray. "Laundering money through your own loony bin," Gunnar continued, his voice dangerously calm. "Ghost patients, kickbacks, insurance fraud, and that's just the financial stuff. Then there's the other file he found. The medical one. The real one. The one that says you're the broken one, Richie." Gunnar looked at Richard, and his eyes were completely dead. "But you know what? I don't care about the money. The feds are already on their way for that. They're probably at your office right now, and at your house. I'm here for this." He gestured to my bruised face. He looked down at Maya, who was finally quiet, just clinging to him. "Little bird, you did so good. You're the bravest girl I've ever met in my life." He nodded to one of his men. "Patch, get her." The biker, a man with a scarred face and kind eyes, stepped forward and gently, so gently, scooped Maya up. "Hey there, little boss. Let's go wait in the hall. We got some loud business to finish." He carried her out. Another biker, Sledge, came and put a heavy arm around me, helping me to my shaky feet. "We got you, Tessie. You're safe." Gunnar walked slowly over to Richard, who was backed against the wall, his mask of control completely shattered. Dr. Vance was slumped in his chair, his head in his hands. "I don't understand," I whispered to Gunnar. "Maya, she got to you?" "No," Gunnar said, his voice thick with an emotion I couldn't place. "The orderly, Miguel? He mailed the package. We got it 2 days ago. We've been planning this. But the kid, Maya, she ran. That night, Tessie. The night he hit you. She ran 6 blocks to a convenience store and told the clerk her uncle Gunnar needed to come, that her mommy was hurt. The clerk called the cops, who of course called him. He jerked his head at Richard. He got her back. Told them she had a nightmare. Told them you were sick. But she tried. My God, Tessie, she tried to save you that night." I let out a sound that was half sob, half scream. "My baby. My brave, brave baby." Gunnar turned back to Richard. "You put your hands on my family. You took my best friend's daughter, and you broke her. And you terrified her little girl. The feds are going to take your money. They're going to take your houses. They're going to take this. Doctor, but I'm here for the down payment." He leaned in, his voice a whisper that was louder than any shout. "If you ever touch her again, you won't just lose your fortune, Richard. You'll lose the hands you used to hurt her." Richard Sterling, the billionaire, just slid down the wall and sat on the floor, shaking. He was nothing. "Let's go, Tess," Gunnar said, putting his arm around me. As we walked out of that pale blue conference room, sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer. The feds. I looked back. Dr. Vance was being handcuffed by one of Gunnar's men, who was zipping the doctor's hands with a heavy-duty zip tie. Richard was just broken. Humiliated. Destroyed. I walked out of that hospital, leaning on Gunnar, into the bright, shocking sunlight. Patch was waiting by a big black truck, holding Maya. She saw me. "Mommy!" She scrambled out of his arms and ran to me. I fell to my knees, ignoring the pain in my ribs, and wrapped my arms around her. I buried my face in her hair, breathing her in. "You saved me," I cried. "My baby, you saved me." "I told you, Mommy," she whispered, her arms tight around my neck. I told them you weren't sick. I was free. Annalise's 8 years of patient, furious planning, and Maya's 1 night of impossible courage had saved us all. Walking out of Oakwood was like being born. The sunlight was so bright it was violent. The air smelled like nothing. Just air. Not lavender. Not disinfectant. I just stood on the pavement, clinging to Maya, breathing it in. The parking lot was a sea of flashing blue and red lights. Men in dark blue jackets with FBI printed on the back were swarming the building. It was real. It had all happened. A woman in a sharp suit, her badge clipped to her belt, approached us. "Tess Sterling, I'm Agent Harris. We have a lot of questions for you, but they can wait." You and your daughter are safe. Gunnar stepped in front of me, shielding me. She's not Sterling anymore. And she'll talk when she's ready. Right now, I'm taking her home. Agent Harris looked at Gunnar, then at me, then at Maya, who was fast asleep in my arms, her face finally peaceful. She nodded. We'll be in touch. First, we need to debrief a Ms. Annalise Sterling. She's had a lot to say. Annalise. I looked back and I saw her. She was walking out of the building, flanked by 2 agents, not as a prisoner, but as a witness. She looked frail, but her head was high. She caught my eye from across the lot. She didn't smile. She just nodded, a single, sharp dip of her chin. It was a thank you. It wasn't it's over. We didn't go back to the mansion. We went to the Iron Saints clubhouse. It was loud. It smelled like motor oil and stale beer, and it was the safest, most beautiful place on earth. The women of the club, wives and girlfriends, swarmed us. They brought me clean clothes. They found Maya a new teddy bear, one that was just as big as her old one. They made us hot food. No one asked me any questions. They just took care of us. The next few months were a blur of legal proceedings. The news went insane. The Sterling conspiracy. Billionaire's House of Horrors. The Wives of Oakwood. My face was plastered everywhere. The janitor wife, he tried to throw away. Richard's empire crumbled overnight. The USB drive was a kill shot. It wasn't just the infertility, which publicly humiliated him. It was the massive, undeniable proof of money laundering, wire fraud, conspiracy, and kidnapping. Dr. Vance, it turned out, wasn't just his doctor, he was the bagman. Oakwood was their personal piggy bank, a place to wash millions and bury their secrets, Annalise and me included. I had to testify. It was the hardest thing I'd ever done. But I wasn't alone. Gunnar sat in the front row every single day. And Annalise, she was a force of nature. On the stand, she was not a crazy woman. She was a brilliant, cold, and precise businesswoman. She walked the jury through 8 years of her imprisonment, and she did it with an anger that was so cold it burned. Richard didn't stand a chance. He got 25 years to life. He lost everything. The money, the company, the reputation. Dr. Vance got 15 for fraud and his role in the kidnappings. He lost his license forever. Beatrice, she wasn't charged, but she was destroyed. The Sterling name was toxic. She was a social pariah. Her son was in prison. Her name was synonymous with cruelty and fraud. She was left alone in that cold, empty mansion. A fate worse than prison for her. The divorce was fast. I didn't want a dime of Richard's blood money. I wanted one thing, my daughter. I got full, sole, permanent custody. The judge didn't even deliberate for 5 minutes. My life. I had to start over. And I did. With help. Annalise found me at the clubhouse a week after the sentencing. She looked new. She was wearing a simple, elegant dress. Her hair was a healthy color, and her eyes were bright. She sat down across from me. I've settled my civil suit, she said. I was his partner. I helped build that company. The courts have unfrozen and returned my original stake. I'm comfortable. I'm glad, Annalise, I said. You deserve it. So do you, she said. He took 2 years from you. He took 8 from me. We can't let that be our whole story. She slid a business card across the table. I'm starting a foundation. A real one. A fund to provide legal aid and safe housing for women and children trapped in abusive situations with powerful men. Men like him. I want you to run it. I stared at her. Me? Annalise, I was a janitor. I don't have a degree. You have something better, she said, her voice firm. You have a spine of steel. You have a story that will give other women hope. And you have an eye for spotting a lie. You're perfect. I'm not taking no for an answer. And so, I said yes. It's been 2 years now. My life isn't a fairy tale. It's real. I have a small, 2-bedroom house with a messy backyard and a little garden. I'm the executive director of the A&T Foundation, Annalise and Tess. We've helped over 40 women get out. Get their kids. Maya, she's 8. She's thriving. She's in therapy, and so am I. She's loud now. She laughs. She takes art classes, and her paintings are all over our walls. They're bright, vivid, and full of color. Gunnar is, well, he's Gunnar. He's Maya's favorite person in the world. He's at our house every Sunday for dinner. He's the grandfather she never had, and the family I always needed. The Iron Saints are not the scary bikers anymore. They're just family. I look at my life, and I can't believe how far I've come. I was so desperate for a respectable, wealthy life that I walked right into a cage. I lost everything, and in that darkness, I finally found myself. I found my strength, and it wasn't in a billionaire's bank account. It was in the love of my daughter. It was in the loyalty of a friend I'd pushed away. It was in the quiet, patient fury of a woman who refused to be forgotten. It all came down to those 7 words my little girl screamed. "The billionaire is beating my mama." She was terrified, but she said it anyway. Her truth was the one thing his money couldn't silence. And that's my story. Thank you all so much for being here and for listening. This was a really hard one to tell. I hope it finds anyone who needs to hear it. If you're still here, please hit that like button. It helps so much. And if you haven't, please subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. I have so many more stories to share with you, stories of survival, of hope, and of finding justice in a world that isn't always fair. I want to know what you all think. What part of the story hit you the most? For me, it's always Maya. Her courage, it still just takes my breath away. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'll be reading and replying. I hope you all stay safe out there. I hope you know your own strength. And I'll see you in the next one.